that rises to the level of involuntary manslaughter if you know that a potential murder or killing is going to occur?
Yes. Social media, let's be honest about it. Text messages these days, that's how people communicate. Everything is, and it's all in writing. You can't run from this. I will bet you that there'll be text messages or phone calls, but likely text messages that the prosecutor's office, they had a search warrant, they went into the home, and they obtained all this stuff. And really, if that turns out to be the case, which likely it will be with these charges, there is a trail of evidence that any jury will take a look at and say, ooh, does that rise to the level of gross negligence? Meaning you were so reckless, so grossly negligent that you caused the death of someone. You knew what was going to happen, and as Karen McDonald has said in the past, this could have been prevented. And it likely, we're going to get all these, not all the facts, but many of the facts coming up any minute now.
And Charlie, we keep going back to that meeting where the parents were on school grounds in the administrator's office the day, just hours before the shooting. That probably, I would assume, did not come out of left field. There had to have been a buildup until that point. What did the parents know at that point to allow their son to continue about his day? Well, why not step in at that point? Well, negligence?
Well, I think you ask a good question. What did the parents know at that time? And did the parents have an idea that, number one, the kid had a gun? Who bought the gun? It looks like the parents bought the gun for the kid. And yet they go into a meeting because the school people allegedly hear or see some weird personality traits with this kid, and the parents don't tell the school? Again, all of these little evidence, all these little pieces of evidence will come out at a trial to support the charge of involuntary manslaughter. And so if the parents knew this, didn't do anything, or blew it off, again, it just added on to the factual basis to make a determination of gross negligence. In this case, involuntary manslaughter. That's the actual official charge. 15-year felony. It's a big one here. Big one.
Charlie, if you take this from the perspective of the victims in this, how devastating is it when you realize that somebody knew something? And it's one thing when your child is the victim of a random act of crime, but to know that somebody, an adult, could have stepped in and stopped this, that is just so painful to hear.
And listen, if the alleged 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley, we understand there's videotape of him shooting, okay. But all of these facts now leading up to it, and I would imagine the prosecutor, Karen McDonald, is going to be detailing some of these, and I have a feeling, make sure you're sitting down, because I have a feeling it's going to be really bad. But assuming it is, now the victims, the families, have to relive all this in really bad detail. And could this have been prevented? The prosecutor already said it could have been prevented if the parents would have just exercised some thought process here. And remember, it's a 15-year-old kid who obviously has some problems. I think that's not too far-fetched to say. But yes, for the victims, if the question here, it's very sad. We already know that the school itself, the Oxford High School, is kind of like a war zone. That's what the superintendent said at a videotape that he made yesterday. Why? Because these kids had to run out of the school. They left their backpacks, they left their phone, they left their coats. And it is still a crime scene. The prosecutors and the sheriff's office now will have to go through all these, possibly to find more clues. But we're hearing now the charges will be read by prosecutor Karen McDonald, involuntary manslaughter, any moment now at a press conference, and I tell you, that is a tough charge. It is far more than just leaving your guns unlocked. It's far more than that.
Charlie, how much detail will we hear at this news conference aside from the charges? Potential for the text messages or any other evidence that may have been found through this investigation. Will we hear vivid details about what police and authorities have, or will we just hear these charges?
Well, we're certainly going to hear the charges. I think we're going to hear a little bit of detail because I think some of the lawyers around the world over here are going to be asking if it's involuntary manslaughter. That means that the parents would have had to have known something, and I think the prosecutor will detail some. She doesn't have to, certainly, but I do think she's going to give some charges to support the charge, some actual incidents to support the charge of involuntary manslaughter at the preliminary exam, which will again, there could be a lot of other procedures before that. We will hear the actual charges because the prosecutor has a duty. They have to make their case and support these charges, at least by some evidence here. But that comes later on down the road. But I do think today, at any moment now, we're waiting for Karen McDonald, the prosecutor of Oakland County, to make a press conference and I do think we're going to get some detail as to what happened because it's unusual. I think a lot of people thought that the guns, you leave the guns out and that's enough. And really, Michigan law is not that clear with regard to a gun owner and the duty to protect minors. Other states have a very crystal clear law. The feds have a crystal clear law that gun owners must protect and secure their weapons, their firearms, to make sure minors don't get them. Michigan doesn't have that. I just got off the phone with a legislator, and I said, hey, what's the deal? You guys going to do anything about this? I mean, it's a legislative fix on that aspect. But that would only be some kind of abuse and neglect charge if that was it. When you talk about involuntary manslaughter, one step from murder, no. Something more happened. These parents knew about it. They did something to further the crime and unfortunately cause the deaths of 4 people.
At least that's the accusation,
That's
allegedly,
the accusation.
at this point.
Yep.
Charlie, when you talk about text messages, because this is a new day, and when we look back at previous school shootings, we know in the past 20 years, I did a story yesterday, there's been more than a couple hundred school shootings, and we've never heard of parents being also charged in those, and perhaps the technology is helping prosecutors. We know that text messages in recent times have become an integral part of any investigation and reveal so much.
I think we're going to see these things. I think that I think if there's a parent now, if you have access to your kids' texts, look at them. And if you suspect anything, you may very well have a duty to take a look at them and make sure these kids don't go out and do something bad. Again, these are all allegations at this point in time. But when you have evidence, and I'm assuming there's going to be social media evidence, we know that search warrants were executed at the home. The Crumbleys, the family, James and Jennifer, they live right in downtown Oxford, and so we know that they are right there at their son's arraignment. They didn't say anything, but we know that text messages and social media provide so much evidence to the prosecutor. And there may even be video evidence. We understand that the kid, Ethan, may have allegedly, he made a video the night before. I don't know if the parents knew about that. I don't know if the parents are in it. Maybe there is some indication there. But the bottom line here is between social media and video, I mean, look at the cases, the high profile cases that we've had recently. Video and social media have become exhibits 1 and 2, A and B, for most cases. And certainly we're going to get a lot, I would think, in this case.
And Charlie, we saw, authorities, Oakland County Sheriff's Department on hand at the parents' house within a relatively short period of time, executing a search warrant at that house, taking out guns and whatever the case may be. Just how crucial could that part of the investigation have been in making this decision? Crucial.
Crucial. Yeah, once you get a search warrant, obviously a crime is committed, the judge is going to sign off on a search warrant. So a search warrant is that the police, in this case the Sheriff's Department, will have to go in there and say to a judge, hey, we believe that the parents may have some involvement here for whatever reason, but likely, and then they go in and they get whatever they want. But mostly they're looking for computers, cell phones, texts, certainly guns, any kind of records. We understand the sale of the gun took place just 4 days or so before the shooting. I would think they would want to know, where was the gun purchased? Who was the gun purchased for? Maybe there's evidence there. I mean, think about it. If the parents bought a gun for their 15-year-old minor kid, that's not good. It's illegal. You can't do that.
Charlie, how do you prove that?
Sales receipts?
Yeah.
Sales receipts?
I'm talking about in terms of buying the gun for the 15-year-old.
Here's a car. It could be, maybe it was a Christmas present. Here,
yeah,
happy to have you. Right. Here's your gun.
Yeah.
Or,
right.
Don't do any bad things with your gun.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to make up facts here. Yeah. But this is what prosecutors do, and the Sheriff's Department, too. Supposedly, they work together on these cases. But, yes, that's how you prove it. And, again, little evidence like this mounds up and up and up to make sure, then to support these charges of involuntary manslaughter, 15-year felony, 1 step from murder. Ooh, on parents? Yeah, big It's really big stuff, and I tell you, it's a warning to everybody out there. You think you're going to just send a text, I'm going to shoot up the school? Beware, and parents beware. How is this stuff going to stop if the parents, who arguably have they're in the best possible position to prevent illegal activities from your minors, I think the parents, it's a warning. It's a shot heard that it's a warning to parents right now, assuming these are the charges.
Charlie, so we are hearing some activity. There is still no one at the podium right now. We might be able to show our viewers a shot of what we're waiting on, what we're seeing right now. We have heard the detective, there it is there. We've heard the detective listing some of the charges at this point, and now we're waiting to hear the actual announcement. From a legal standpoint, Charlie, is the prosecutor able to
James and Jennifer
Oh, here, let's listen into this.
Crumbley resisted the idea of Ethan leaving the school at that time. James and Jennifer Crumbley left the high school without Ethan. When news of the active shooter at Oxford High School had been made public, Jennifer Crumbley texted to Ethan at 1:22 p.m., "Ethan, don't do it." At 1:37 p.m., James Crumbley called 911 reporting that a gun was missing from his house and he believed his son may be the shooter. Further investigation revealed that the Sig Sauer 9mm handgun purchased by James Crumbley was stored unlocked in a drawer in James and Jennifer's bedroom. The gun recovered from Ethan Crumbley at the school after Crumbley on 11/26/21 in the presence of Ethan. Based on the foregoing, the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office has requested 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter as to James Crumbley and 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter as to Jennifer Crumbley.
Thank you. The court, after reviewing the complaint and the warrant and the information, finds that the testimony is sufficient at this point in time to go ahead and issue the complaint and warrant. If you want to approach, please. One second, I got the other one too. All right, we will give you the warrant. I'm just gonna make sure I've got all the paperwork here signed, and then I'll give it to you for purposes of execution. Please. Jen, make sure that these are in the right file. I'm looking for the other warrant. Okay, for purposes of arraignment, I will be doing a video arraignment from the jail. I just want to make sure that we have appropriate feeds. I know that we've had issues in the past with certain iPods, So, I will do the video arraignment at 4 o'clock. Is
Okay.
that okay?
Yes, Your Honor, be aware the suspects are not in custody at this point,
Okay.
so
If they are in custody during that time and that's the time you want to do it, I can do it at 4.
that will be fine, Your Honor.
Okay,
Thank you.
just keep in touch.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, if I will do it by video as long as I have, good feeds,
That's understood. Yes, ma'am.
okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
They'll give you the warrants and everything downstairs at the criminal counter.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry?
Just make sure the file numbers are in.
Yep. Thank you.
Judge?
You can retrieve your mics if you want.
Yeah, excuse me, Judge? Over here.
Oh,
Sorry.
I knew somebody was calling me.
I know, sorry. Given the uncertain nature of this, is it all right if we pull out with the gear now and then come back if it goes down at
Yes.
4 o'clock?
Yeah, just working out with my court administrator.
Right,
Okay, yeah, because I have to close the courtroom, I have to lock it,
right, okay,
okay?
thank you.
So I prefer that you leave. I won't be doing it
You prefer
before
that we
4
pull out
o'clock.
of here anyway?
Pardon me?
You prefer that we get out of here anyway?
I do, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank